Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my wrap up for the month of August and TBR for September. Now I judged my own TBR for August to be epic in the sense that I was gonna read 12 things, manga and graphic novels, and I was putting some titles that I was truly looking forward to. Apologies for any background noise, it's a full house today. I have actually managed to read all 12 things. I finished the last one last night and I had an amazing reading month. I can't physically lift them up, so I will try at the end when I'm done. But as always, I'm going to start from the least enjoyable one, or that I enjoyed the least, to the one I enjoyed the most, trying to explain why. At the same time, I did overall have a good, amazing reading month, so there are no 2 stars that I can remember, or I think there are no 2 stars. I honestly do love reading graphic novels and manga. Enjoyment is at this point in time. It might be that some of these things will shift with the time, just because some might stick in my mind more than others. So you will have to see at the end of the year for my top. But as of now, this is my current ranking. I want to also premise that I think I'm gonna cut short, and with cut short meaning I won't do them anymore, the synopsis for them during my wrap-up. So my idea is, because some of these graphic novels series or manga series especially, I will talk and have volumes after volumes every month. I don't think it's worth, at this point in time at least, I think it's a bit of a waste of time, because you might be very familiar with them and you don't need me to say the synopsis. So my idea is that I'm gonna give you a synopsis when I do my TBR, but not when I do the wrap-up. I'll just tell you the genre and the target audience, but that's it. Let me know if you hate it. Let me know if you prefer for me to give you a synopsis even during my wrap-ups, or if doing a synopsis during my TBR is enough. Because at the moment I hope that people will see my TBR and then follow at the end of the month the wrap-up, so they will already know what the volume was about, what the story was about. So yeah, so number 12 we have, I feel like we should have like like a drum roll or something. We have The Flowers of Evil. This is number 4. It's the completion of this contemporary series manga. I'll show you some of the art. I do love the art so much of these. And okay, so why this is a number 12? So I was left confused by this. I honestly didn't get the end, and if you did, and if I read this by any chance, do let me know in the comments down below what you thought about the ending, what it meant. I did interpret by reading it twice that the author meant to say that the story doesn't end and it's a cycle. So I did get that messaging of the story doesn't really end, it's a cycle of as life is usually a cycle. Fair enough, but I think the way he has done it can be very confusing, and it wasn't clear that it was a cycle at all, and it took me twice to read it again, and I think I had to read it afterwards for me to understand what it meant by that. But it's one that ultimately I put as 12th place, because I read this in probably an hour or so. It flew by. It's just that it left me confused. It left me with questions that I don't have answers to. I don't know if I'm happy about the few answers that we get. I'm still very much confused. And when I was putting this list together, I was like, this is the only volume that felt like I didn't grasp it, in a sense. And I want to reread it in the future, probably just read all the volumes one after the other and see if that makes more sense. But it's one kind of open ending that usually I do like open endings. I'm not completely against them. In this case I felt like it was an open ending that was too confusing, too open, and ultimately I didn't love this enough to have so many theories, so maybe that also plays a part. I gave this 3.5 stars, so I didn't hate it by any means. I love the art. I was just like, I don't know what I think about this, so it has to be in 12th place. Which is not very helpful if I do a review, but it's the honest truth. I don't know where I stand as of now. We'll see in a few months how I feel, if I remember these at all. And number 11 we have Fables, and this is a fantasy. I'll show you inside because this is just, it's stunning. These are the deluxe editions. Spent a lot of money on these, I'll be really honest. Not as much as others, special edition that I own, but definitely worth it. The art is stellar, and often you get guest artists. The main story is always with the same artists, but then you do get a lot of guest artists, and I do love those volumes with guest artists. So this is a very dense graphic novel. This is one that does take many hours to read. It's not an easy read, which is not a problem at all. But the problem I had is that because I had not read one of these volumes in 2 years at this point, I had to pause and think about who had done what, and think about a lot of the characters that I couldn't remember at that point in time. And it's about fables, but it's way more grim fables rather than Disney fables. It was very dark, and I think because it's not much, it's not like a lot of blood or a lot of violence shown on the page, there is more subtle the violence and the horror elements. There are definitely some horror-ish elements, especially in this volume, at least in one part of the story especially, and I did really enjoy that. I'm definitely a big fan of horror when it comes down to books or graphic novels and manga, so I did enjoy how dark that was. It just felt particularly dense and slow at the same time though. And also I did love how the end, we had like something happening, and one of my favorite characters, which is the big bad wolf, when something happens with him, like seeing that happening, I was so happy. I almost had tears, so don't take my review like this of being 11 places a bad review at all. I do love fables. I collected all the volumes for a reason. I will reread these. I am ultimately a huge fan of fables. I guess I wasn't that used anymore to this density of story, and it took me a bit of time to get used to the characters again. And I guess because you follow different threads and different plots, some might be more on your taste and some will be less. So although I appreciated some of the more darkish themes in these, some of these plots in these were less to my taste, if it makes sense. But I did really like what they do, how domestic violence is portrayed in, you know, a very fable way, if you want. But I did like that bit. I am very curious about the ending, and I will continue on with these for sure. And I gave this 3.75 stars. So number 10, we have what I would consider the biggest disappointment, in the sense that I would honestly expect this to be number 1 or 2 or 3, and instead it's a number 10. The Corsaggi Delivery Corp service. So this ultimately was a disappointment, but said that I did miss the Corsaggi Delivery Corp service. I was so happy to be back in this world. I was so happy to be able to actually watch and enjoy these. I honestly did have a good time while reading these. However, I think what happened is that in this volume, I noticed more of the repetitiveness of the story in itself. And I mentioned before that I'm not a huge fan of repetitive content. So if a manga or a graphic novel or a book or whether becomes very repetitive, for example, I don't know, detective series where pretty much the cases are the same, you know who's done it, and then you have to follow until the detective catches the bad guy, and the, you know, those kind of things. I enjoy them for a while. After a while they bore me, and somehow this one felt more repetitive than the first volume did. And I don't know, because maybe the first volume, the concept was such a novelty to me, I didn't care. And in these, now because I get accustomed to how this works, I got a bit of more repetitiveness in. I felt it more, basically. Or it's because maybe the content of these 3 volumes wasn't that good as the first 3 volumes, personally at least. So I don't know, I will continue reading these. I will always read the Corpse Delivery Service, but I think didn't live up to how much I loved the first 3 volumes, or the first compendium, as you want to call it. It gave me a bit of vibes of Scooby-Doo. I don't know, it has nothing to do with Scooby-Doo, absolutely, but it gave me that vibe of paranormal, ghostly detectives, if it makes sense. So it definitely gave me that vibe that I had when I was watching Scooby-Doo. This 3.75 stars as well. At number 9, we have another one that I was expecting to love more, definitely. And I didn't. I still enjoyed it much, but I didn't love it as much as I thought. And this is The Rose of Versailles. I picked this up for 2 main reasons. One, Lady Oscar, this is how the anime was called in Italy when I grew up, was my favorite anime when I was a child ever. It broke me, the anime. And 2, because Oscar, I mean, one of the protagonists in these, she is what inspired Griffith from Berserk. So I'll show you some of the art. First of all, like, when we appreciate the stunning, like, packaging wise, like aesthetically, this is perfect, and each of the 5 volumes are like a different color and I love them so much. The art style, it's like this. I'll show you some like a colored page, and then I'll show you it's just a few colored pages, and then you mostly get black and white. So this is a very old series, 1972. This was published in 1972. So I didn't love this as much though as I hoped. This is a romance historical fiction, manga and graphic novel, which is not my cup of tea. And I think this is my main mistake, is that getting into this thinking that it was gonna be like Lady Oscar the anime. It's been now 20 years since I watched the anime. So keep that in mind. I have this idea of the anime of being extremely heart-wrenching, extremely very serious, and much less romance and fluffy and comedy than this was. So it was thrown off balance by the fact that I remember in my mind the anime being so tough to watch, and then going to these and this feeling very much a fluffy graphic novel, that I was like, what's going on? And it's a bit tricky though, because a lot of the things that happen in these are pretty brutal. A lot of the things that happen in these are pretty serious, and we already know that the outcome of it is not going to be positive because of the writing style. It tells you, no, oh, if that character had done differently, or if she had realized what she was doing, she could have avoided the end. So we are told horrible things are gonna happen. We see some of very intense things happening, but because of the art, somehow it doesn't get through, not as the anime did at least. It feels very frivolous and silly at times, while things are happening that are extremely serious, and I was like, why is this not coming through? Why do I need to step back and realize what's happening for me to actually realize that this is a very serious thing? And I think it's because of the art. And one of the things I didn't love about the art is that basically all the art is like faces, like panel of faces. There are very little context. It's showing us the face of the protagonist over and over and over again. And I don't know, I got a bit, not bored, but I didn't love this. I didn't love how everything was basically showing us the faces, you know, faces, which is, I don't know why it bothered me so much. Like, I don't know if something that I never noticed and somehow in this I noticed. I don't know why. But I was like, I want to see around, like, I don't know. I felt like I was just shown, and also the faces were designed in a way that they sometimes are confused characters, because I don't think they were distinguished enough between each other. So I was like, okay, who's who, wait. And finally, I guess one of the critique I had, which is not a critique necessarily, something that didn't work for me, is that in the anime, Lady Oscar is definitely the protagonist. While here, it feels like Marie Antoinette, she's more of a protagonist, and I care less about her than I do about Lady Oscar. So Lady Oscar feels like she's there, she's definitely one of the main protagonists, but she's not the main focus, and I was just there for Oscar, and I didn't get Oscar as much as I wanted, or she didn't feel like the protagonist. So yeah, basically, I will continue on, I will read all of it just because in itself is just an experience. I don't think the art doesn't, you know, live up. I do not like the style of choosing just to show us face, and this is being very similar. But I don't think, like, it doesn't feel like it's been written in 1972, if it makes sense. So yeah, and I gave this again 3.75 stars. And number 8, we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Again, you can get a synopsis from my TBR that I've done at the beginning of August, I believe. And this is a fantasy. I would describe this as a fantasy. I'll show you some of the art, some of the art that I can. It's not that brutal. Funny story, this guy here, it's called Dio Brando, which in Italian means God. So every time, I love how it sounds, Dio Brando, but every time I saw this guy coming in, I was like, oh, that's God, which is a bit weird. And I also apologize because I think I described this as a potentially Western, which is not. My mistake. It has nothing to do with Western. So this was very fun. I enjoyed it. I don't know what's going on with this guy and the body proportions. I'll show you some of what I mean. I don't know, let me see if I can get a picture of his body. Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example of weird body proportions of characters. But apart from that, I think I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very entertaining. It has some elements, without giving any spoilers, from fantasy things, but I do really enjoy those elements. So the mask thing and all of that, I'm very curious to continue on. Read this very quickly. I think it's fairly simple, and as of now I've just read these. I know that JoJo is made of different stories with different characters, so as of now this one worked for me and will continue on. But I think it's simple in a sense that sometimes can be good. Simple classic stories, like going back a bit to the origin. I think this is pretty old, so it does make sense on why this might be. This was entertaining without being too much layered, without requiring brain power really to read these. It was just honestly a good time, and I gave these full 4 stars. I'm number 7, and I was debating between putting this at number 7 or vice versa with JoJo, but at number 7 I got Summertime Rendering volume number 1. I love the aesthetic of these. You also get posters at the end. It's like these. You see? Whoop, sorry. I think I showed this in my vlog. But I love how you get posters, and really love these aesthetics. This was amazing. This is again a paranormal thriller. I was expecting this just to be a thriller, but it soon took a turn for the unexpected. I wasn't expecting this to go the way it did, and I didn't watch many movies with this concept, but I've heard of movies with this similar concept in. So I guess with people that love that concept, and again, I can't give you any spoilers, but maybe you can look online if you're very interested, but you know, this might be very much your cup of tea. And I'm really intrigued by this concept in general, just because it's quite new to me actually. And I mean, from what I gathered of the concept, like I'm not 100% sure I got the concept correctly, but if I do, I really enjoyed it. I found very fascinating. I think the cast of characters is also pretty small, so you get attached to them, because this felt like a very lengthy volume. I spent a lot of time with them. It took me a longer time to read it, so by the time I felt like I knew them well and I grew attached to them. So this is always a positive. And I also have to say that this is something that always scares me, because this can be butchered very easily, in the sense that I don't know where this is going, but depending on what turns it will take, it can either be very much, you know, wow, or very much like pfft. So I'm curious. I will continue on with time, because these volumes are very expensive to be like not special edition or anything that I know of. But hopefully this doesn't get butchered. Hopefully this will stay in my taste. I just can hope. And I think overall though, it's a concept that it's new, it's interesting, it's intriguing. So I would definitely suggest it overall. Maybe if you can find it a bit for cheaper though, because it might not be in your taste. I gave this full 4 stars again. And number 6 and 5, I have volume 5 and 4 of Chainsaw Man. These can come together. I think I read these volumes so fast that in my mind they're just one unique story. And I have to say that usually I'm not used to read single volumes for majority. I usually get like the bind up edition or whether. So this is a bit, I devour a volume, and in my mind I will probably try and slow down with these, because otherwise I'm just mixing the volumes and I can't tell you exactly what happens in this volume and this volume. I can just combine all of them in my mind. So I want to slow down and read one volume and not one back to back, because it will allow me to judge the single volume better. This is not a perfect 5 stars yet, I don't know why, but I absolutely love Chainsaw Man, and I don't want people to think that I don't, because I honestly do love this to bits. And I really hope that we get more on Division 4. I'm very curious about them. I'm extremely curious about them, and we didn't get much about them, but we are introduced to them in these volumes, and I was so happy about that. I was like, oh yes, this sounds like so interesting. This is so bloody, so violent. I always get a laugh out of them. I think it's a very, I don't know, at the moment, as an ongoing series, I believe, It's definitely one of my favorites, and I think it just everything, all elements of this works perfectly, because we do have this big mystery that it feels generally like I wanna know, so I'm honestly invested in knowing and continuing on, which is very positive. Like most series are like, oh yeah, cool, I'm interested whether. In this I'm generally very curious, which is always a plus. Kima's character, for example, like what's going on there, look who she is, like what, I'm so curious. I had such a good time with this, and I will continue on. Did I say I was gonna mention the audience for this? I didn't I? Oh, sorry, but this is Shonen Jump. I will start from now on, which is basically almost done, but whatever. And I give this 4.5 stars to both of them. Love Chainsaw Man. And number 4 we have Vinland Saga. Now, Vinland Saga is very well beloved by some of you guys. Some of my friends suggested these in real life. I mean, they just, so many people love Vinland Saga, and when you get into something that's so loved, it's always tricky. And we appreciate how these books look like. This is a humongous series, like so many volumes. It's crazy. There is also an anime adaptation which I have not watched yet. Now, this was, I think I can see the hype. Like, I think there are some panels, some moments in these that made me stop and just pause and then go back to them for how powerful they were. And I think there is a character here of our father, main protagonist. His character, I loved him so much. His integrity, his honor just comes through the pages, and there is some scenes with him in it, without giving any spoilers, that I found absolutely perfection. Like, I absolutely loved it, and I got his character from those. Like, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and that is powerful. Then, and I have to say that although this is in 4th place, and I would not pull my hair out for these as of now, I truly see why people love these. Now, why this is in 4th place and not higher, and you might wonder, and there is a very specific reason, which is a very personal reason if you want. So although, again, as I said, the characters, some of them characters that just really sit under my skin, I am the story in itself, the plot, and what happens is not completely new to me. Like, it didn't feel so fresh and new. And maybe because I've consumed a lot of content a few years back regarding Vikings, and from TV shows, books, so I've seen this kind of story and this kind of revenge story and this kind of even characters that felt like characters I had seen in other media, always regarding Vikings. I love Vikings, and that's why I will continue on. I probably very much love Vinland Saga. I will come to love it as much as some of you guys do. I'm pretty sure it will work out well. I've got good hopes. I just didn't feel, as of now, like groundbreaking. It felt like it was very well done. I felt like I definitely want to continue on, but I wasn't just like, whoa, what am I reading? Just because the story itself reminded me a lot of things, if it makes sense. I gave this 4.25, really enjoyed it, and I think the reason why these, for example, is rated a bit lower, but it's still in 4th place, is because the father of our main character, like, he made a huge difference. He truly left a mark, and I wanted to honor him by putting this higher than Chainsaw Man, which is very much the love of my life at the moment, and one of the love of my lives. So I needed to shift angle so my camera could be put in charge in the meantime. So at number 3 we have Lore Olympus. This is a fantasy, urban fantasy story. I'll show you some of the art, which is some of my favorite art ever. I mean, I feel always weird saying ever, because I might love different types of arts for different medium, different stories, and I think this is just the kind of art that I love particularly because of the color palette and because it fits the story that's been told to us so perfectly. And so that's why I absolutely love these graphic novels, and there is just love for these. I think I had, the plot is very simple if you want, and yeah, I found these that can be so touching, fluffy, loving, while at the same time raising some contemporary topics that are very important, that I absolutely love what Laura Olympus is doing, while giving us entertaining and amazing art. I also really love how the disclaimer in this is done. So, you know, it does, first page when you open up the title, it just takes its time to give you a clear trigger warning. And I think in many of the graphic novels and manga I've read, this is so needed, that I just loved how this is the first time I actually open up a graphic novel and I see a proper trigger warning without at the same time feeling spoilery, if it makes sense. So it keeps things very vague, because I think sometimes in things, giving trigger warnings can also spoil stuff, but at the same time they are very important. So I don't know, I loved how this was done. I love the color palette. I just love the characters, where this is going. This is a very quiet, in a sense, graphic novel. It's slow, it's taking its time. I know that people can find online way more chapters than were out, but I love reading them in this way, and I give this 5 stars. It's not my ultimate favorite thing ever, because the plot doesn't hold the element of surprise that usually I tend to value so much in my content, in my, you know, in the media I consume. But it's still a 5 star. It's still something that I would definitely recommend if you are intrigued by the premise, if you love mythology as I did, and at the same time if you love contemporary stories, love stories, or even literature fiction so far, like I think or if you just appreciate art. If you appreciate art and you want a cute story, but at the same time that can pack a punch though, Laura Olympus. I am so invested in these two. So invested in these two getting together. It's been a while since I cared so much. Now number 2. For the first time in months and months and months, Berserk is not a number 1. At number 2, I have Berserk Volume 8. This contains volumes, let me tell you, 22, 23 and 24. I would spend some time to say that this edition came with full posters that when I opened this up, I screamed. I genuinely screamed. I was screaming. I don't care. I was just honestly just having to share my excitement. Of course I won't take them out because, you know, I won't, but I mean, posters, guys. Berserk posters. Can we... Oh, this is so heavy. My arm is shaking. I need to show you. I'm sorry. I need to show you what's inside here. So 3, and then you make 6 because it's both sides. 4 posters. And the last one, it's one of my least favorite characters, unfortunately. Is this guy. I don't even know how it's called. So yeah, the fact that this is in second place is not because of aesthetic. So here we start with the Millennium Falcon arc. And I think I've noticed the same thing with the Conviction arc. It does take some time for me to ease myself into the new arc. And I think I just want to premise, because I know that I've done some content about Berserk and many of us here now share the love for Berserk. I want to premise just saying that when it comes down to a series that's so long, it's fair enough that we might like some volumes more than others, and that's just okay. Like, Berserk is still one of the best things that happened in my life in terms of hobbies and, you know, my passion for manga and graphic novels and books. Like, it still changed me as a reader, despite my fact that I didn't love these 3 volumes as much as I loved some other volumes in this series. So overall, these 3 volumes, 22, 23, 24, the initial volumes in the Millennium Falcon arc, were a full 4 stars for me, but they weren't 5 stars. And I don't I think there are many reasons why, and I don't want to spend too much time because I do whole videos, reviews of arcs. So I'm gonna keep some of the more nuanced thoughts for, you know, the video I'm gonna put when I finish the Millennium Falcon arc. But as of now, I think I got the feeling that this is like, it was with a Conviction arc, a very introductory volumes, 3 volumes of the Millennium Falcon arc. I did absolutely like to see how some of the other characters, so like we don't follow only Guts, we see different characters. And I did really love how we get some back stories of some of the characters in here. I don't know, I found myself putting this down more often than any other Berserk volume so far I've read, and that's why it made me realize that maybe this is not a full 5 stars. I love how the art is improving though. I do generally wanna, like, Berserk is the best thing that happened in my life in a long time, as I said, so I do generally want to continue on. I can't wait to see, but I think because it takes its time, Berserk, it's not like a easily fixed, like things develop slowly, and I love Berserk for this. It felt very much like it was filling gaps in order for us to then be introduced to the new arc, if it makes sense. It was just giving us a slow introduction. And let me show you some of the art. It's improving every volume, it's amazing. It just, didn't feel fresh, or I didn't feel like we were getting something very new compared to what we got so far in these 3 volumes, if it makes sense. Like, it felt very much a continuation of other stuff, nothing major happened. Also, I need to make this brief note before I move along. Now even orcs, which are not even humans, like orcs are considered animals, now even orcs are rapists. I'm gonna keep these thoughts for my whole discussion, because we had a lot of back and forth. But I have to say that I would love for Miura to get some evil characters that are just evil without having to be rapists as well. Like, does it make sense? I think it gets to a point where even animals now are rapists. Animals, creatures of all kinds, no matter what. Like, they're evil because first thing they do is rape someone. And I think there are other ways for you to make characters evil. I'm gonna discuss this more in that discussion. But yeah, something that bugged me a tiny bit, and I was like, oh, here we go. Let me guess, we're gonna rape someone. Yes, they were. And I was like, really? So that's the only thing, I don't know. But ultimately, the reason why this is not full 5 stars is because it didn't feel like I was getting anything new. It felt very much a build-up. And at number 1, the thing that this month, guys, surpassed Berserk was Preacher. Preacher volume, book 5. This contains 2 volumes, I believe. Now, Preacher, let me say this straight on. The only thing I really don't like about Preacher is the art. Like, I'm not a big fan of the art style. That's just personal preference. I'll just put it out there. It must be said. I don't love it. I don't love it. That's it. There's no way around it. But I love Preacher, man. Like, I've read, so it's 6 books in total. I've read 5. Only one of these I didn't particularly love. And book 2, I think it's my favorite thus far. I need one more to read one more. I love Preacher, and I think Preacher is just my perfect cup of tea. It's very American, like it's very much, it's not something completely new. I think it does a genre of we've seen before with, you know, a revenge story, and we get a lot of discussion about America being the dream country, and then tackling issues of racism, you know, and people that are religious extremists. And like Nazism is brought up in these, a lot of violence, a lot of blasphemy. This is very reverent. This is very out there, and it's not for everyone. Like, this offends pretty much everyone. A lot of sexism is brought in. There's so many topics that we have seen before discussed, and even in this gritty way, with this writing that's extremely witty, sassy, like it's very savage at the same time. But what it does is that it takes those things that we kind of seen before in other media or books or whatever, and it just takes it up a notch. Like this is the most extreme form of that, and I absolutely love Preacher. I think it does, I don't know, it just does the perfect revenge story. You know, movies like, I don't know, The Equalizer, like this kind of guy that takes upon himself to seek revenge for the atrocities that humanity is going through, what God and religion has done to humans. It just works so perfectly for me. I love Jesse. Like Jesse, the preacher, and it's not a priest, I apologize, because I think I've described this as the story of his priest. No, he's a preacher, which apparently is different. Sorry, I'm not an expert by any means. I don't have a religion, so I'm not an expert, but he's a preacher, not a priest. Jesse is just amazing. Like, Jesse is one of my favorite characters ever. He's very much black and white as a character, his sense of honor, but at the same time he's a character that, you know, I see life as black and white, and I don't, you know, if you do something wrong, doesn't matter if you repent or whatever, I'm still gonna punish you. But then he stops and questions himself. So he's someone who says, I'm very extreme. I'm very against seeing life like this way or the other. I don't see blurred lines. I don't see the grey. But I do recognize that there is. I just am not someone who can live with the grey areas. I don't know how to explain it another way. I think it's a very... it's amazing, Jesse. Jesse also, and the love interest in this, I don't want to spoil anything, or whether that couple, I think they managed to put romance in this and made one of the most touching, profound romances I've ever read in a graphic novel series. Like, you know, those epic Shakespearean loves in these. And they combine in such a way that's just perfect. It doesn't feel cheesy. It just feels magic, and everything about this I love. It's not for everyone. I didn't watch the whole TV show. I need to continue on, but I would say if you watch the TV show and you are just near weather, or if you like violent, extreme graphic novels, like the extreme violence and very offensive in a sense, and not offensive, but they can, yeah, I don't know, out there, like very irreverent graphic novels, and you've not read Preacher, what are you doing? Like, this is a 5 stars. Like, Preacher, man. I love Preacher so much, as you can tell. And yeah, Jesse, I've got Jesse's, like, I don't have, you know when they do the mid-year freak out tag, I've not done it, and they always ask you for new favorite crush, and I don't have it, and I thought if I have to have one would be Guts and Griffith and Berserk, someone from Berserk and Weather. Jesse put that out of the way for now. Like, in this volume I would choose Jesse. And I know it's very hard to choose between Berserk and Preacher. And I don't want to choose because I love them for different reasons as much. But they were both very violent, very out in your face if you want. So I can see why someone who loves Berserk would love Preacher. So if you love Berserk, you might want to give a try to Preacher. 5 stars, guys. Preacher was the best thing this month. Okay, let's go to the TBR part. But before I do that, I'm gonna attempt to lift them all up. Like, this is everything I've read. This is everything I've read, guys. It's so heavy. It was epic. Like, I had such a good time. Such a good time. And I'm gonna go now into the TBR for September. It's gonna be very much more contained. First of all, back to work, school starts again and everything, so life is gonna get, it has already got back to be hectic as it was, so I don't have that much time to read. But also, like, a lot of these things are new things that I've started, and I'll be really honest, they're very expensive. I need time to purchase volumes and just go ahead with them. So the September TBR is a bit more contained. And I read volume 9 of Berserk, of course, because I need to continue on. So I'm reading these, and also it's on its way. I've purchased already book number 6 of Preacher, so I'm gonna read the last volume. That's it, it's gonna be done, and I'm afraid, because I don't know, I really hope I love it. I really hope this finishes on a high end, because I've been loving Preacher so much. The premise, you got this guy, Jesse, He's a preacher, and one day he's bestowed upon immense powers, as powerful as God. And he decides to go on a task to find God who has disappeared, left humanity, abandoned humanity to its misery. And he says, I'm gonna find God and hold him accountable for all the pain and the misery that we are in as humans. And along the way he meets a bunch of weird characters. It's very much a commentary, a social commentary, racism, sexism, religious belief, and on the American dream. Love this. And then the other volume that I don't have in my hands, but it's volume 6 of Chainsaw. So I'm gonna try and read one volume a month so I can be more, criticize one volume each. I think it'd be more useful for my channel in this case. So Chainsaw Man, the story of this boy. He was abandoned as a child, so he basically raised himself, and he, at the beginning of the story, is living in a barrack with his demon pet dog, and he's just, I think it's been hired by this mob guy to, you know, do odd jobs for him in exchange to a bit of money so he can eat. And then one day this mob guy sets him up, something horrible happens, and our main protagonist for a series of events becomes a demon in a sense. I'm gonna leave it at that. I've been loving Chainsaw so much, as you could have seen from my wrap-up, and so yeah, I'm gonna continue with volume 6. Then I am gonna read volume 1 of Dorodoro. I think I've purchased a lot of first volumes in series and I wanna kind of read them so I can decide which series I wanna continue on and which series I don't want to. So Dorodoro, there's a popular anime of this. This is another violent one. It just says, you know, adult content, be aware. I think somewhere, oh yeah, explicit content. I'll show you some of the art in these. Is this proper? I think it's okay. And this is the story of this world where scientists have transformed some humans in half animals, half humans, and we follow this guy who's half lizard, I believe, who wants to exert his revenge about, you know, on the scientists and people that made him into a monster, basically. And I don't know anything else, so I'm gonna keep it very vague, but I've been recommended these a lot by you guys, so I want to read these. I'm gonna continue on, finally it's here. One of you very kindly let me know that this was available on Amazon, so I hurried, purchased it, and this is Spy Family Volume 2, and this is, I don't know, what you call it, fantasy, I don't know. Show some of the art. This has been all over the place, so you know what Spy Family is about. A guy who is a spy has to infiltrate a high school, and to do so he needs to create a fake family for himself. So he hires a wife, who turns out she's an assassin, and he goes to an orphanage and picks up a girl that she can read minds, but they don't know. So everybody's in the dark when it comes down to the powers of the others. So yeah, it's a fantasy. I've been loving volume number 1 so much, so I want to continue on. Then I'm gonna start Demon Slayer volume 1, another one that is a very popular anime. This is the story of this boy, and one day he's out to procure food for his family. When he comes back, his family is being decimated by a demon, and the only survivor is his little sister, but his little sister has been transformed into a demon. So now he goes on a path of revenge and trying to figure out how to transform back his sister, I imagine. Show you some of the art of the anime. I've heard only stellar things about this, so I'm expecting great things from these. And the same thing, that very popular one, I've got volume 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen, how you say. The synopsis of this, though, I keep reading it and I keep forgetting it. So only thing I know is that in this world there is magic, in the sense that there is these pieces of a demon that if you consume them, if you eat them, you'll get immense powers that can threaten human life. So they've made like a whole system to try and avoid people from finding and consuming these pieces of this demon. And then you follow this boy who's very powerful and he's very interested in the occult. And I don't know if he's like part of the people that are trying to defend humanity from, you know, finding these demon pieces and consuming them, or what is his deal. I don't know. I'm gonna find out. If it's synopsis completely different, then of course I'm gonna tell you in the wrap-up. But as of now, this is very popular. I'm gonna try the first volume. I'll show you some of the art. Here we go. So I'm actually excited then to try the anime, because I think it's the same production company or something. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that did Attack on Titan. So, and finally, I'm gonna read Slime. This is, I really like the aesthetic of this, first of all. Like, and we really love how this looks. And all I know about this is that this is about this guy. He is minding his own business. He's like 37 years old or something. Office worker. One day he saves his colleague from something. He dies and he wakes up in this fantasy world, and now he's a slime, like he's a piece of slime, but he has magic. And so he's a piece of slime with magic who died and got transported to this fantastical world, and now he has to fight monsters or whether. I heard this is a very feel-good graphic novel. I don't know if it has high stakes, it's just more like funny, entertaining. We will see. But I love the premise so much, so I wanted to give it a try. So yeah, this is what it's gonna be. Very little, plus the 3 things I mentioned. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's around 8 things I'm looking forward to read in September. Let me know what you read in August, what you loved, what you hated. No spoilers, please, in the comments down below, especially when it comes down to my TPR. And I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Ciao!